start at the top. Nick Saban. We know why we hate Nick Saban here in town. Do we not? I mean, look, it all happened during those 2 years he was with the Miami Dolphins, and it didn't stem from the fact that the Dolphins doctors screwed him by suggesting, this Breeze, he'll never throw another pass again. And Dante Culpepper, even though he was timed in a wheelchair at 9.6 in the 40-yard dash, they said, well, this is your guy, Nick. Imagine the time.
Wake up with Defo, joined by Lubie. Welcome to the Defo Show.
Morning, everybody. Welcome to a degenerate, not degenerate Friday, a Peel Yourself Off the Mat Monday edition, man. I'm already back before the weekend here. And I wish I was back before the weekend, and I wish I had entrusted my betting and wagering activity to one Mike Lubie Lubitz. Because never in my lifetime did I think I would see this day where I was thinking, geez, all the handicappers that we talked to on the show, the Brandon Langs, the Mark Lawrences, the Greek, the professors, all of the handicappers, they can lose my number because I have a guy that I'm working with that wasn't 2-2 like I was, wasn't 3-1 like my friend Francesco was, whose bets I was booking over the weekend, but a robust 4 and a big fat round number in the loss column, Lubie. Way to go, man. You called it all. Ravens, your best bet. Cover easily after kind of a shaky on the ropes ring rust first half. Come back in the second half, and they smoked the Houston Texans 24-0 in the second half. Lamar Jackson supposedly lit into the team at halftime and said, hey, listen, guys, you got to wake the fuck up. And it worked because they dominated. Probably the most impressive unit over the weekend. If you took offense and defense on all 8 teams, you would have to say the most impressive unit. Maybe by far, what was the Baltimore Ravens defense throughout that ballgame. Gave up 3 points essentially in the first half on the opening drive. And then the special teams give up a punt return, so the score a little bit deceptive. But they held the Houston Texans, who had just been lights out in their previous ballgame. They held them to 3 points for the entire game and constantly put C.J. Stroud under pressure, stopped the running game. Houston had no running game, although they weren't big in terms of running results during the course of the regular season. And they demonstrated that they're definitely a team that has a springboard for improvement next year, and a team that's on the come. Rookie quarterback, no running game essentially, no great weapons on the outside. They make a few changes. They could be really, really tough contenders in the future. But the Ravens defense was overwhelmingly the most impressive unit of the various offensive and defensive teams that were out there over the weekend. I don't know that anybody else really distinguished themselves in that kind of fashion. And then, of course, we had kind of a thriller in Manila type of game last night, although it ended up very much like affirmed in Alydar, where, as great of a horse as Alydar was, couldn't get over the top, whether it was by a nose, a head, or an even larger margin. When it came to playoff time, they weren't able to contend with the Kansas City Chiefs, who nearly frittered that game away. Stupid rule there on the fumbling out of the end zone. We'll talk about that. And who better to discuss all of this stuff with? And let's get right to him. Then the great John Congemi with the Pigskin Playbook, brought to you by Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill, mile marker 104, Overseas Highway in Key Largo. John, looking good today, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing great, guys. What a weekend of football. That was exciting just to kind of hang out and be a couch potato and eat as much as you want and take in some good football. It was nice.
Yeah, real good. I mean, the Ravens game in the first half was contentious. Second half, I think they showed people why our good friend the Greek bet them before the season. Were they really 18-1?
That's crazy.
To win the Super Bowl before the season? Wow, I'd feel pretty good about that right now. And so you had that game to start things out. And then, of course, San Francisco going against the Green Bay Packers. I thought the entire ball game the Packers were going to knock the 49ers out. Really did. They had every chance to do it. That 4th and inches play down near the goal line didn't go their way. They tried to push, but you had Jordan Love kind of up high. I mean, would you possibly go in with your head and shoulders raised, trying to run a quarterback? How many quarterback sneaks did you run in your lifetime, John? I would bet
a lot.
But a lot, yeah.
I never got the tush push really. That wasn't in vogue then. But
Tommy Fox didn't get behind you and just give you a little shove.
He's in front of me. Yeah. So It's one of those things, Defo. You watch how the Eagles did it all year, and they did it both ways. Sometimes Jalen Hurts would ride the wave over his offensive lineman, and sometimes they'd get down low and just move the pile. And depending on pad level and what the defense is doing, most of the time, the lower man always in football wins. But with the tush push, it's like if you can get that massive humanity going in the right direction and one guy breaks down, you find one weakness and you hit it at the right spot, it can go for 3, 4, 5 yards.
Yeah.
But if you get high and you get a stalemate, that's where you have no ground power at that point. So you're at the mercy of those guys trying to move the pile underneath. And sometimes the defense will win that battle. And on that particular play, San Francisco did.
Looked like both of the teams that had the bye showed ring rust. I mean, Baltimore was not quite itself in the first half of that game. They end up walking off the field at 10-10. And the 49ers really never got it together to the level that you thought. We were saying on an earlier program that we just did on our No Filter show on Caffeine TV that if I'm Deebo Samuel's agent, I'm on the hotline to John Lynch right now and saying, hey, listen, Johnny boy, this ain't going to fly. If this guy's not the highest paid player on this team, then nobody deserves to be, because when they went through that 3-game losing streak, what was the one common thread there? It was they were missing Deebo Samuel. And it's amazing that one guy can have that much impact on an offense that has other players. I mean, it's not like they don't have Kittle and they don't have McCaffrey, Purdy. I thought after a so-so game, Lubie thought he kind of sucked, but he did orchestrate that game-winning drive, which was not an easy thing to do. But with Deebo Samuel out of there, this is a Jekyll and Hyde. I mean, a completely different team, is it not?
Look at the Miami Dolphins without Tyreek Hill.
Yeah.
I mean, you base a high percentage of your offense around your star playmaker. And not only does he affect the defense when he has the football, when he is targeted, but how much effect does he have just being out there to dictate coverage, to move guys away, to draw two instead of just single coverage on 75% of the defenses that are thrown against you. And it makes it easier pre-snap for a guy like Brock Purdy to go, okay, Devo's here. They're doubling. I've got Ayuk. I can check it down to McCaffrey. I can go to my tight end Kittle. I've got a lot of options at my disposal. So not only is he productive when he has the football, but he just being on the field changes the way opposing defenses will come after you in terms of blitz and the way they'll play in the secondary in terms of coverage. So, yeah, he has a huge effect. And in both of those games where the teams had bye weeks, I thought Baltimore was going to find their footing, because I thought Lamar was going to start to dictate how the game was run with his legs and how he was going to extend plays, how he was going to get it to his playmakers. And you kind of felt like the Houston Texans, they had shot their gun early. Like they were coming out blazing. That was all they were going to have. And they weren't going to get to that high mark anymore. Anything they were going to do was going to be a slight slide down from where they were in the first half, because I thought the defense especially played a terrific half of football. And then Lamar and the Ravens kind of took over on both sides of the ball. I thought weather kind of dictated the way San Francisco played early, not only having Deebo in and out of the game, but I don't think Brock handled the weather particularly well early. He was uncomfortable with the glove. He wasn't sure if he was going to wear it. I've been in that situation where it's a nasty day, and you're like, should I wear this thing, or it feels awkward? Nah, I'm just going to take it off. But it takes a couple of series for you to get going and decide, like, hey, what are you going to do? Mm-hmm. And that's I believe the quagmire he was in terms of he had doubt, and that's the worst thing you can do, especially in a playoff game, is come out and play with any hesitation or doubt. You need pure confidence, and you need to kind of put your foot down on the accelerator and think clearly. I thought that hesitation in his game and that doubt kind of held the 49ers back a little bit. But in the second half, they made a drive. Now, should they have won the game? I thought Green Bay should have won the game. I thought
seemed like they were the better team in that.
I do too, guys. Not only the missed field goal in the second half, but credit the 49ers defense early, because it should have been 14-0.
Yeah.
and it was one of those situations where they didn't take advantage of their opportunities. And we saw as the weekend progressed, when you got in the red zone and who had to settle for field goals instead of getting touchdowns, kind of that was the common thread throughout the 4 games.
Yeah, it was interesting all the way through, and then you're thinking that there's no way that Green Bay is going to lose this game, and of course they end up on the losing side. So San Francisco will be hosting what now is the Cinderella team of the postseason, and that would be the Detroit Lions with our man Dan Campbell as the head coach. We were talking earlier, and I read this story yesterday in the New York Post about Campbell. There are many tributes, as there should be, to the job that he's done. A 3-win team his first year. They end up winning 8 of their last 10 in his second year after starting out 1-6. Everybody was speculating they can't keep going with this guy when he got off to that 1-6 start following a 3-win initial campaign, and they did stick with him. I think that surprised a lot of people. And then he goes 8-2, knocks the Packers out of the playoffs in the final game of the regular season, and then wins the division at 12-5 this year, and now has a couple of playoff wins. Although they were dicey. It does seem like 7 points is a somewhat generous allotment, not to get into the wagering side of things, John, but it seems like making them a touchdown underdog in this game is kind of imploring everybody to go ahead and bet out in Detroit. They have Eminem on their side, where the Chiefs have Taylor Swift. So it depends, what your musical taste is. Do you like pop music or the rap? And it is a great story evolving. We were talking earlier about the initial press conference that Dan Campbell held, and it reminded me kind of like a wacko, violent version of the Adam Gase New York Jets press conference, where you saw, wow, this man is like a crazy man. Remember when Gase had the eyeballs bulging out like the actor Marty Feldman? And who knew, right, that this guy looked like he was just completely unnerved. Campbell was talking about how when you knock us down, we're the fiber of the city, a blue-collar town like Detroit. When you knock us down, we're going to bite your kneecap on the way back up. We're never going to stop fighting. The people there love him. He really is emblematic of the whole plight of the Detroit demographic. And then on top of that, Detroit's teams have been down for a while, right? The Pistons suck forever.
The Wings have been down for a long time.
No Fedorov there skating around. Yeah, Tigers haven't done anything since Dombrowski left. I mean, this team is definitely embraceable, and Dan Campbell has become the fair-haired boy.
It makes you want to root for Dan Campbell and the Detroit Lions.
Yes.
It's one of those things where, they're wearing hats that have grit on them. You're looking at Dan Campbell. His nose looks like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
Doesn't he look like he went 12 with Riddick Bowe?
Yeah. Just jab, jab, jab. And he keeps coming out at you. It's one of those situations where you've got a coach that built, and I hate always to, culture. He built toughness. He said, this is how we're going to play. And if you don't play that way, you're not going to be here.
Yeah.
And I think that's what he built. He built a standard that this is my expectation. And if you don't meet up to the expectations, you will not play for me. And he got the mixture right in terms of getting belief in his quarterback that, was a guy that was kind of...
He was a throw-in that Stafford deal.
Swimming around, aimlessly at nothing, not sure if he was going to be it or be a bridge to someone else or, what he was going to be. And Jared Goff turned out to be a first-round draft choice that is playing like one now with a lot of confidence, and he has a really good football team around him in terms of running backs and linemen and wide receivers and a defense that is relentless. And Aaron Glenn's done such a great job as a coordinator, and Ben Johnson on the other side, former Dolphin coach. It's hard not to root for him, right? It's hard not to root for him. And then, you look on the other side and you see San Francisco and you see Shanahan with the hoodie up, and he looks so smug, and he looks like he should, be hitting a cigarette on the side, kind of like cuffing one, on the sidelines. With that scowl all the time, never looks happy. So you would think most of America is going to go, come on, Detroit, let's get one. They haven't been there in so long. It's a Cinderella type of story. Let's root for the Lions. I think it's going to be a hell of a game.
Their last championship was 1957. They hadn't even they didn't draft Milt Plum. They didn't even have him on the team yet. I guess he was drafted by the Cleveland Browns in '57. Station wagons were coming into vogue. They became a very popular vehicle. Eisenhower was president. And it's been a long, long time. I mean, for the Detroit Lions to sniff a championship. They've been the one conference championship game in recent years. That was 1991, if you consider that recent. I guess it is to me because, it's only 30 some odd years ago. And so great story working there. They win the 2 playoff games. They were a little bit tight. But nonetheless, they managed to prevail and find themselves in the championship game. And then the Bills and the Chiefs last night, John. Again, Patrick Mahomes gets a little lucky. We were talking about it the week before. Bass kept the Steelers. Bass was very suspect. It was the Steelers, that the Bills played. And, he had the field goal block to turn the momentum of the game completely around. I don't know if that's all on him, but nonetheless, he then missed for the guys that were betting the point spread, shanked royally a field goal try from short range. And I remember thinking, geez, I don't know that I want to go, into the next round with this guy kicking the football for me. And sure enough, he had the big miss there at the end that would have put the Bills into a tie situation. All of that hard work that they did on that drive goes up for naught, goes up in smoke. And then it was just a matter of routine, 1 first down, and the Chiefs were able to run out the clock. How impressed were you with the Kansas City Chiefs? Were you impressed enough to think they can go on the road and beat a Ravens team that got warm in the second half of their game after shaking off whatever ring rust they were experiencing?
It seems like the Chiefs this year is a team with 9 lives, and I think they may be running out when they get to Baltimore.
Yeah.
I don't want to discredit what they've done because they're a really good football team. They're well coached. They have one of the, arguably the best quarterback in the National Football League. You can throw them in with, the Jacksons and Allen and, the guys that are always mentioned at the top. You just trade him out and he's the best one, in the history of the world that week. And then the next guy is the next great guy. But I just don't know if what they're doing is sustainable. They made some really good adjustments because the course of that game early, the Bills were running all over them. They were running at will. And even Collinsworth mentioned it during the game that it felt like the Dallas game where Buffalo was dictating the line of scrimmage. They could do what they want. They were going to control the tempo of the game. And as the game went on, the Chiefs started pressuring the line of scrimmage, not only pressuring Allen in the passing game where they got a couple of free blitzers coming from the edge, but they pressured the running game. They were run blitzing. And that really, put a cement wall up for the Buffalo Bills in terms of running the football at ease on early downs. And then they got behind the chains. Then they went 3 and out, then they went 3 and out, punt, 3 and out. And it kind of turned the game where Kansas City had a chance to put it away with a short field a couple of times. You get the turnover in the end zone for a touchback. And you get, I think they screwed another one up. I don't know how they did it, but the Bills got off the field. And now
they had a chance to recover that fumble, and the guy tried to pick it up and go instead of diving on him.
That would have ended the game. I mean,
yeah, and now you think the Bills are going to go down and win this game, or at least tie it.
Yep.
The Bills are going to have a chance, but the Bills had their chances too. Couple deep balls if you catch the football.
Yes.
You're in the red zone on one of them. If maybe you score, and the one Sherfield kind of trapped and slid and dropped. That gets them around the 20, 25, 30-yard line. So, they had their opportunities down there, with explosives. They just didn't capitalize on them.
All right, well, stick around, John. John Congemi, of course, in the Pigskin Playbook, brought to you by Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill, mile marker 104, the Overseas Highway. I think we have some good weather coming up here, so great time to get down there. I'll tell you more about that. Lubie's going to carry it the rest of the way. I have to bow out for a little medical situation here. I got to get this whole process started so we can do the next show. But stick around. More with John Congemi in the Pigskin Playbook with Mike Lubie. Lubitz, Mr. 4-0. He went 4-0 in his selections.
Way to go, Lubie.
Hit them all. He hit every game. He had the right favorites. He had the right underdogs. And so he is now capitulating to Lubie for all of our wagering decisions. Guy who, like me, has been a lifetime loser. And all of a sudden, he's Mr. Degenerate here, leading the charge to try and bury your bookmaker. So more with John Congemi in the Pigskin Playbook in a moment. Now that. It's 8:30.
Folks, Tony Segreto here. Let me ask you a question. What do you look for when you go out to eat? Good food, obviously, friendly atmosphere, not too loud, but good energy, reasonable prices, and a place where you feel comfortable. All those ingredients, no pun meant there, are hard to find unless you're talking about the Texas Roadhouse. You see, they encompass all of those attributes. Really, really good food, amazing atmosphere, good for a family, good for a date, or just a night out for yourself, and prices that will make you extremely happy. Their ribs unmatched, steaks hand cut every day. Everything, and I mean everything, is made on site, including their incredible bread. It's the one day, folks, that you can forget about low-carb diets. Trust me when I tell you, Texas Roadhouse, your restaurant, your destination when you say, where should we go and eat tonight?
From the newly renovated sports bar to the beautiful bayside views captured at the Tiki Bar, Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill has it all. Located at mile marker 104, the Big Chill also offers waterfront dining while experiencing breathtaking sunset views of the Florida Keys. It's simply the hottest spot in the Keys to cool off. That's Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill at mile marker 104 in Key Largo. For more information, call today at 305-453-9066.
Dolphins with John Congemi, and that's brought to you by Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill in the Keys, and we're looking very much forward to doing some broadcasts there. I think we're going to head down there like once a month during the football season. I have to ask you this, and feel free to, not necessarily spill the beans from a personal standpoint to your good friend Dan Marino. Does he experience, or did he ever experience, nightmares about handing the ball off to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar that one year when Jimmy insisted on running the ball on every play? And it was always, the announcer, I think it was Ron St. John, was a stadium announcer back then, and you could hear him say, hand off to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, gain of 1, 2nd and 9. Hand off to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, gain of 1, 3rd and 8. Did he ever talk about that?
No, he's never really talked about that, Defo. But you're right. I think they did have that on loop at whatever the stadium was called at the time.
It was 1 yard every time. And it was a generous 1 yard they were giving him statistically.
Enjoy your trip to work with lots of laughs thanks to Defo and Lubie. Now on the Defo Show.
Alrighty, back at it here this Monday, getting your week started. A little Pigskin Playbook, Jimmy Johnson's Big Show with the one and only John Congemi. All right, so we talked about the games that were. Before we could talk to the games that will be, Ravens and Chiefs and Niners and Lions. So we talked a lot about the Bills and the Chiefs, and it was probably the most contentious game. And in the end, well, I guess the Packers and the Niners game were pretty close, but there was a lot of plays in that game where you talked about the drop balls or the balls are overthrown. The one to me that I, to this moment, still don't really understand was, I think it was Pacheco when he was running around the end, and you talk about the Bills getting help. If he goes down at the 2, the Chiefs at 2nd down, they probably will score. They're up 10 now with under 6 minutes, under 5 minutes. Like, the game is pretty much over at that point. Instead, he questionably fumbles. To me, he looked down. I thought he was down. The refs, and they called it down, and then the replay, they said it was a fumble through the end zone. Now, the word is that they're going to change this rule. What are your thoughts on that rule? I've always thought it was sort of stupid. Like, just because the ball goes through the end zone, if you fumble it and it goes out of bounds, you retain possession normally. The word is that the NFL is looking to change that rule. I don't know what it'll exactly be, but from now on, it won't be. If you fumble it near the end zone, it won't go to the other team. What are your thoughts on that rule as it stands? And what are your thoughts on of them changing that rule?
I personally like it because every rule, it seems like that's coming into the National Football League or college football or high school football, everything's benefiting the offense, and there's nothing there for the defense. The defensive rules are getting stripped away, it seems like. And for me, it's part of the offense's job to try to break the plane with control. And if you lose control in the field of play, I can understand that ball should stay with the offense if you lose it and it goes out of bounds. But if it goes into the end zone, that's kind of the defense's last stand, right? So you're going to give the offense another rule to say, well, you fumbled it, you screwed up, and it did go into the end zone and went out of bounds. We're going to give it to you on the 1 because you're going to give you another chance to score points. So for me, even though, I love offense and I want offense, and I think the defense is getting robbed of so many things that they can do to try to prevent the offense. And guys are getting so fast that's that's like our territory. That's our last stand, you know? So I kind of like the rule the way it is.
Yeah, and that's an interesting way of putting it, because I've always thought about it as when it goes out of bounds, it's dead. Who cares where it goes out of bounds? But you're not wrong. You can't tackle low. You can't tackle high. You can't even hit in the middle. Christian Wilkins hit Josh Allen in the chest with his arms not even pushed. I'm sorry, Mahomes, with his arms not even pushed out. And because Mahomes has learned how to act like he was on Broadway, he gets a penalty, even though there was a holding going on, and a game that was close. And the Dolphins, even though they couldn't score, were in because of they're so sensitive to the quarterbacks.
Yeah,
the quarterback. They sort of pretty much ended the game at that point. Like, you're right. There's really nothing that defenses can do. That is,
there's like, if you think about it, the goal line is the last possible spot on the field where the defense can kind of make a stand, right? And that's their territory. They're trying to keep you out. And if you accidentally make a mistake when you're going into the end zone, it's almost like a receiver. You know, you have to retain possession. You have to be able to catch and get through the ground on a touchdown catch. But as a runner, all you have to do is touch the front of the plane of the end zone, and it's a touchdown. So I think that's kind of why I think the way I do about that rule.
All right. Well, the AFC NFC Championship games are set. We did have one upset, the Chiefs beating the Bills, and look, many won't consider that an upset, considering that the Chiefs are now 3-0 with Mahomes versus Allen, but they were on the road, and it was Mahomes' really first time in the playoffs,
right?
Outside of a Super Bowl being on the road, they'll have to be on the road again. But outside of that, I went to form: Ravens, Lions, Niners. Ravens, Chiefs, Niners, Lions. I guess we'll start, since Dolphins are AFC, we'll start AFC. It's funny, and you guys sort of started talking about the Chiefs this last game and where it is for them now. It's 6 AFC championships in a row for Patrick Mahomes. I think they went to more, because with Alex Smith, I think they went to a couple. But for Mahomes to start a career, it's 6 straight AFC championships.
Amazing, isn't it?
It's insane. It's ridiculous. Andy Reid has now won 2 Super Bowls there, and he's been to, 4, I guess. He's been 3 there and 1 with the Eagles.
Yeah.
So you have the experienced coach there, but this time around, it's not Sean McDermott, who always finds a way to sort of I still don't understand why they went for the fake punt at the 30-something.
Yeah, I guess because they had an automatic call in. The announcers were saying there was only 10 guys on the field for the Chiefs. Still, though, you got to be able to kick that and let the game kind of play out. But it didn't hurt them because they ended up getting the ball back. But still, that was when you shake your head. Yeah. So
that's the kind of stuff McDermott will do that I don't know if Andy Reid will do. But John Harbaugh is now, we're right there, right? John Harbaugh's won a Super Bowl. He's been, I think, to multiple Super Bowls. If not, he's been close, been to title games. He's won lots of games as a quarterback that's going to win his second MVP this year. So where I gave Andy Reid, that was my reasoning for picking the Chiefs, was it came down to quarterback and head coach, right? Allen just has this propensity, and he fumbled it late too again, where he sort of just loses his brain at times. Mahomes, as much as he's a gambler, late in games finds a way to win. Same thing with Andy Reid. They met their match, right? Because Lamar Jackson, whatever Lamar Jackson is, he's not Mr. Turnover. And he's now playing in the playoffs in a way he's never played. He played a good defense. That didn't let him run. And supposedly he's the one that led them at half and woke them up. And they were a freight train in that second half. Lamar Jackson's playing the best ball of his career, and he is a coach that has won before. It's just hard for me to see the Chiefs going on the road into Baltimore and winning this game, even if the spread, and now it's only 3 and a hook. So I can see, where are you with the Ravens and the Chiefs, AFC Championship game?
I kind of like the Ravens at home, just like I kind of like the Bills at home, only because you felt like it was going to be back and forth, but somehow the home team was going to prevail. That's the way I was going into it. And with the Chiefs, boy, they expended a lot in that game against the Bills, where I felt like for Baltimore, it wasn't easy, but it was easier than what some of the other teams had faced. And they're feeling some confidence. They're at home. That place is going to be rocking. I think that this is the last hurdle for Lamar. It's not even winning the Super Bowl. It's getting an opportunity to shrug off the playoff bug that has been hanging over him in terms of lack of production, in terms of turnovers, in terms of staying in the pocket and throwing it, in terms of making plays with his legs, putting it all together in the playoffs. and you've got a coach that will play right on the edge. I mean, he'll do some stuff now that will remind you of McDermott. He might go, gamble a little bit too in certain situations where you think they're never going to do it now. But I do believe he has a football team where he doesn't have to play that way. Yep. He can play it straight up and know that his team on most Sundays are going to be better than the product that they're facing. Now, this will be a tough test, but I do think Kansas City won't be sprinting into this game after what they just went through in Buffalo. I think that for the most part, Buffalo had the upper hand, and Kansas City had to find a way to change and then take it away. Yep. And they did because of their pedigree and their coaching. And whether they can do that again against a better team, because I think Baltimore is better than Buffalo, that will be the test for them.
Well, and the Ravens defense is playing right now. I mean, look, they had 10 points on the board. 7 came from a punt return for the Texans. They held a playoff team, a division winner, to 3 points. And Stroud, he was a rookie, but coming into that game, everyone was hailing him. He's a top 5 quarterback, whatever you want. He didn't do anything in that game. That offense did nothing in that game. In the second half, especially, they went on a 24-0 run. The Chiefs' offense has been an issue for them this year. It feels like they're finally realizing they need to run the ball more with Pacheco and Edwards. Yeah. But I don't think you're going to run much on the Ravens. Like the way they're playing football right now, it may not be early 2000s Ravens, but it's, to me, as close to that as we've seen in a long time. Their defense is really strong. They're running the ball well. And Lamar Jackson, before half, the Texans sort of figured it out, right? They got like 2 or 3 stops in a row because he was able to run the ball really well. He said, okay, fine. You're not going to let me run it. And it's been my big gripe with him is when you don't let him run, he can't be successful. Well, now he has Zay Flowers. Now he has OBJ, who's being competent. He has Mark, his all-pro tight end will be coming back. He has weapons now that he's never had before. So he said, okay, and he stopped running it, and it didn't matter. He'd become actually very proficient from the pocket, and the Texans had no answers. They just steamrolled them. I feel like that's sort of going to be the same thing with the Chiefs is, the Chiefs are better than the Texans, but with their offensive issues and the way this Ravens offense is one of the better offenses in football this year and the way they play defense, I just feel like at some point they're sort of, I don't know if they're going to dominate like they did with the Texans. It just feels like they're playing at a level right now. It's really hard for the Chiefs to match, especially coming off of that slugfest with the Bills.
Well, it's all about matchups, right? So you take a look at the Baltimore defense and you feel good going up against Mahomes in the offense. And that's not, that doesn't happen very often because you've got a matchup for Kelsey. You've got Hamilton back. You've got their linebackers that can run and hit and cover. You've got the defensive front that's hard to move. They got one guy that's 500 pounds. I don't know. I can't remember his name, but he's enormous and he runs and he's agile. He can move along. He's tough to move along the line of scrimmage. So, Pacheco is going to have to run with his hair on fire like he always does, but there might not be those creases there against Baltimore and the Ravens defense because they pursued the football so well. And they're disciplined. Mike McDonald's done an excellent job with that defense. It's a tough matchup. I think it's a tough matchup for Kansas City. I just do. When you take a look all the way around, I don't know. I think it's going to be a lot like the Texans game. I think it's going to be good early. I think they're going to go back and forth, and they may extend it more into the second half. But at some point, Baltimore, I think, is going to take over that football game and kind of go like, they were the better team. And you're going to question yourself by saying, well, I gave Kansas City a more of a chance in this game.
Yeah, we've seen the Ravens get close with Lamar Jackson, and then he's had his struggles in the playoffs. He feels like a different guy. And look, I've been as big because I watched him at Louisville, and everyone gave him all this credit, and he was fun to watch, and he did a lot of high-flying things. But then you would see him play good defenses that were disciplined, and he would struggle. And so I've been very tough on him, and even I've had to say, look, like this guy is just playing different right now, and maybe he's not playing different. Maybe it was a lot of people said all those years he just needs help. Maybe he finally got it. He finally got receivers that accompany his talents perfectly. And now he has the defense and they have the special teams and he's mature enough to not take some of the chances he used to take. And It's like, if they're playing like that, like what are you gonna do? Like, and the problem is the Chiefs and the Bills aren't the same teams they were this year. So it just feels like the Ravens to me, at least in the AFC, are gonna get right through.
Look at the Bills in terms of how many injuries they had at linebacker and how many injuries they had on the defensive, in the defensive backs, and guys were playing, but they weren't 100%. Kansas City took advantage of that a little bit. And I don't know if, you look at the Ravens, I think they're getting everybody back.
Healthy.
Yeah, I think they're probably the healthier team. It'll be a tough, and I'm not saying Kansas City can't win, because they can, because they have a difference maker at quarterback. And he can always, it seems like, make the people that don't believe in them. But I do think that Baltimore is the better football team.
Yeah, I agree there. All right, so moving to the NFC, it's interesting. The Niners have had a very interesting season. They are number 1 seed. They played strong, but they did have that stretch in the middle of the season that started to leave people questioning, and it was in large part due to Deebo Samuel's injuries. And look, he plays a very physical brand of football. They have used him in so many different ways. It's very throwback. It's like H-back, kind of like 1960s, where they just, whatever you need, coach. And it's huge for them, but he gets banged up a lot. And I presume he'll play, but he's banged up right now. The Lions you talked a lot about Dan Campbell and the Lions with the Packers, with last week's game. I don't know what to do with this game. The spread's 7. So to me, from a gambling standpoint, I would lean Lions, to be brutally honest. They're playing, their defense scares me a little bit, but their offense, Goff is playing like the guy that took a Rams team to the Super Bowl, not in the Super Bowl, but to the Super Bowl. And I don't know how much of it is Campbell. I know their offensive defense coordinator do a hell of a job. And I think and Campbell just fires them up just enough to keep them coherent. This is a tough one for me. I could see the Lions, I could see the Niners winning. But the Lions are that team that's playing really good ball, and it's not just the Texans Cinderella story. Like, they're playing sound. They make plays at the end when they have to. They're not making the mistake that allows a team to get too far ahead. The way they play, they feels like they can play on the road and at home because they can run the ball. I don't know, where are you with this game? Because to me, I lean Niners, but I feel like the Lions could pull a move here, and I wouldn't be shocked.
I'm almost. This game is confusing because both teams, I know what I'm going to get from Detroit. The thing that makes it interesting for me is I don't know which team I'm going to get from San Francisco. Okay, if that makes sense to you.
That's exactly how I feel.
I don't know. Is Brock Purdy going to just light it up, or is he going to play mediocre, and that mediocre might not be good enough this week? Yep. Is San Francisco going to get after Goff? And if they do, it could rattle them. But if they play like they did against Jordan Love early in that game, they didn't touch him.
Nope.
I mean, he did whatever he wanted to do, and he was slinging it. And does that allow Goff with their playmakers to have the advantage, early in the game, where they get out and they don't settle for field goals? They score touchdowns, and now it's a 2-touchdown game or a 2-score game that San Francisco has to come back from, instead of a field goal game, So that's the question for me in this one. I just don't know how. I mean, if Detroit wins the toss, they're taking the ball, right?
Yes.
They're going to take the ball and they're going to try to go down and go up 7-0. And that's the way the game's going to go. They're going to be aggressive. They're going to try to go take it. They're going to, do whatever they can. They're going to play with that mentality. And for me, it's all about San Francisco. Yep. Whereas in the other game, it's about the underdog in Kansas City on the road. For me, it's about the home team in this one. How are they going to react? Are they a little shell-shocked because they felt they were the better team last week and had to put together a last drive and get a turnover to win the game? Whereas Kansas City doesn't. I don't feel that way about Kansas City. I think they could go in very easily, even though I think Baltimore's the better team. I think they could go in there and win. It wouldn't shock me. Yeah. Whereas it wouldn't shock me if Detroit goes in there and beats the snot out of San Francisco early in that game, and they can't come back from it. That's where I'm at with that game.
Dan Campbell makes some decisions. Look, I'm old school I'm young enough to want to be aggressive, but sometimes to me it's like it's okay to take the field goal.
Yeah.
But he in some sense knows what he's doing, because what he did was, when you have a young team that doesn't have confidence, it's all about building confidence. What better way to build confidence than to just say, I believe in you, even when it's stupid. Like,
Yeah.
and it's woken them up to they just want it. They're in the conference championship, the Detroit Lions. Like, I just kept saying that to myself yesterday. Like, what the hell? The Detroit Lions are in the NFC championship game. So it's like, that is the kind of thing that's a wild card. Like, and Shanahan will do some risky stuff, but it's usually just stupid. Like Campbell, he sort of knows what he's doing when he's doing these risky things. It's like he'll do it early in games just to like show them, no, we're not changing from what we've done all year.
Right.
We are this. Don't let the crowd, don't let the commentators, don't let your inexperience get in your head. We don't give a crap. We can do this. And it's like, it's sort of instilled this strength in this team where it's like, they may win this freaking game. Like,
Well, look at the play calling. It mirrors it mirrors the head coach.
Yep.
What game was it? It was the Lions last week. I think it was last week, as they're closing out the game, and they didn't want to give the ball back, and they call a pass play
second and 7.
Either 2nd and 7 or a first down play late in the game.
As hell.
Which is like, oh my gosh, they get a first down, the game was over.
Yeah.
Right. But you're thinking run the clock, but that's the way they play because of their head coach, and it filters into their offensive coordinator, their defensive coordinator. That's that mentality, and they're going to go down in a blaze of flames. If it doesn't work, but they're going to play that way, and they're going to play right on the edge. And sometimes they go over, but they get away with it because they have that belief that that's going to work. And sometimes that's all you need as a player is kind of that confidence to know that, hey, no matter what, we're riding this way, and this is the way it's going to be. And something tells me that game's going to be really interesting in terms of, man, 7 points is a lot of points.
Yep. See, that's the thing, is I feel like the other game, I don't think the Ravens will do to the Chiefs what they did to the Texans, but I do feel like eventually the Chiefs have had issues all year. The Ravens are just getting stronger, and I think they're going to sort of pull away. The other game, I think, is going to be a freaking dogfight, and I really think at the end of a game, if you're the Niners, that's scary as hell. Because
and you have your best player, and I don't know if Debo, McCaffrey's so good, but your most impactful player in terms of dictating coverage.
Yep, you need him.
And a resource and a blanket for your quarterback to know he's out there. And if you don't have him, now how reliant are you on the other guys to make plays? Because we saw when he wasn't there in the middle of the year, and we saw in that game, they were just off. I mean, they were close, but they were just off to Ayuk on a number of plays. And thank goodness he made a couple of great catches to keep drives alive, whereas it could have been, punting situations for San Francisco.
Before we let you go, I did want to, when I watch these games and I'm seeing it on Twitter, a lot of people are like, well, the Dolphins are nowhere near this. The Dolphins are this and that. What do the Dolphins need to look? You analyze the Dolphins each and every week, so you know the roster and you know the game. When you head into this offseason, what are the moves that you would like? Because to me, I didn't think that. I'm watching the Bills and Chiefs going, I think the Dolphins can be like, the Dolphins were really hurt in both of those games, and they were close. To me, if they're healthy and they can get a freaking linebacker and they can have a tight end that Tua can trust in the red zone, to me, that makes a world of difference. When you look at the Dolphins, you look at these other teams, and again, record-wise, they were right there with both of these teams. Even the Ravens, they were right there. What are you looking for from them this offseason to try and take that next step?
Well, just look at the 49ers. So take Deebo Samuels out of the game. That's like taking Tyreek Hill out of the game.
Yep.
Take Boza out of the game. That's like kind of taking, Phillips. I don't know, Chubb or Phillips out of the game. Then you take Chase out on the other side. Take him out of the game.
Yep.
So what do you have? You have a shell of your team that you were trying to lay out there. Now, all they needed to do was be one game better in the regular season, and they might have rode the fortunes of not one but two home games in the playoffs, because they would have beaten the Steelers, or they would have beaten whoever would have rolled in there. For the first game. Now you're in this game, you're thinking, we got a chance. We got a fighting chance at home, to make some noise. So they don't need much. They need to figure out how to be a game or two better in the regular season, And hopefully, the gods are looking down and saying, looking down on the football gods are looking down at the health of this team and say, like, did you have to be that cruel? Because it wasn't just one guy. It was a number of players.
6 starters.
Yeah. So if you're looking, all right, all's even and we're all healthy, what do they need? They probably need more depth at linebacker. They probably need maybe some secondary help because you don't know what's going to happen with this roster.
Yeah.
But it's not much. I mean, that offensive line, you take out Armstead, who only played, X amount of games this year, and you put in Lamb, you didn't know who was playing.
No.
Okay. So, at center, after a while, Eichenberg held his own, and you didn't know Williams was gone in terms of, it wasn't good early, but it got manageable at the end. So there's a lot. That offensive line really did a good job to help facilitate those big plays that Tua was able to make. So they don't need much. The depth of this team probably needs to improve a little bit, but gosh, they don't need much.
Well, one place we always need, no matter what's going on, is Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill. We will get down there soon enough. The weather's fantastic. You should definitely check it out. John, appreciate your time. Enjoy more football this upcoming weekend, and we'll talk to you next week, hopefully on Monday, for more Pigskin Playbook.
Sounds good, Lubie.
Thanks, John. The one and only John Congemi. Appreciate everyone joining us this morning. We'll be doing a Tony Bruno show, Defo and Lubie show on the Tony Bruno Sports Network. Check that out at 10 o'clock. Just download the Tony Bruno Sports Network app. And at 1 o'clock, we will be at Prezzo Boca Raton for Mike Mayo's Lunchbox. Always a great time. Burt Rappaport Restaurant Group, or the Rappaport Restaurant Group. Eddie Pizzoli, a great dude. Can't wait to get back out there. Great American, Italian classics. They do a fantastic job. Really, really great restaurant. They have a West Palm Beach and a Boca Raton location. We'll be at Boca Raton today for a Rappaport Restaurant Group Monday from Prezzo Boca Raton. For Diva, for John Congemi, I am Mike Lubie. We will see you tomorrow at 8 a.m. right here on the Defo Show with Lubie on South Florida Live.
Let's go to eat a damn snack.
Look what they done to my show.